침탈하려고 무분별하게 날뛰는 있을 수 없으며 오직 전진.
On November 18, 2022, North Korea launched the Hwasong-17 intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM, drawing international attention. Its official media, KCNA, said the following day that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un inspected the new ICBM test, and for the first time, he attended it with his daughter.
국방과학부문의 전체 일꾼들 주신 경애하는 조국과 인민을 길이 보유해갈.
South Korea and the U.S. conducted a joint air drill the same day in response to North Korea's intercontinental ballistic missile launch hours before the drill. Beijing quickly responded as well.
China pays close attention to the development of the current situation on the peninsula, maintaining peace and stability on the peninsula and preventing the situation from deteriorating and escalating conform to the common interests of the international community. We hope that all parties concerned will stick to the direction of political settlement and resolve their respective concerns in a balanced way through meaningful dialogue.
What is the role of the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, in the missile crisis that North Korea has repeatedly provoked? This is the topic we will discuss in this episode. Hwasong-17 made its debut at a North Korean military parade in October 2020 and conducted its first test in March 2021. The test showed North Korea's possible ability to deliver nuclear warheads to any location in the U.S. Some analysts have speculated that it will be designed to carry multiple warheads and decoys to penetrate missile defenses better. According to the U.S. State Department, ICBMs are North Korea's longest-range weapons, and the November 18th launch was the 8th ICBM test in 2022. North Korea's official media, Korean Central News Agency, stated that the launch of the Hwasong-17 was part of North Korea's highest priority national defense construction strategy, aiming to establish the most powerful absolute nuclear deterrent, calling it the world's strongest strategic weapon. The missile flew nearly 1,000 kilometers or 621 miles for about 69 minutes and reached a maximum altitude of 6,041 kilometers. Despite the missile's theoretical range, Pyongyang's ability to place a nuclear warhead on it and deliver it to its target remains unproven. Ballistic missiles are to be launched into space and then crash to Earth. Experts have yet to see conclusive evidence that North Korea has the firepower to get a warhead successfully into Earth's atmosphere. Kim Jong-un said hostile policies from the U.S. and its allies have prompted Pyongyang to accelerate the escalation of its overwhelming nuclear deterrence. He added that if the enemy continues to pose a threat to North Korea by frequently introducing nuclear strikes, the North Korean Workers' Party and the Pyongyang government will resolutely confront the U.S. head-on with nuclear countermeasures. Leaders of the U.S. and its allies, including South Korea, Japan, and Canada, convened an emergency meeting during the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation (APEC) summit held in Bangkok and called for a united response.
We strongly condemn these actions, and we again call for North Korea to stop further unlawful destabilizing acts. On behalf of the United States, I reaffirm our ironclad commitment to our Indo-Pacific alliances. Together, the countries represented here will continue to urge North Korea to commit to serious and sustained diplomacy. I want to thank these leaders for ongoing discussions in this regard and on so many other very
According to a White House statement, the 6 leaders agreed that the launch was a blatant violation of several resolutions of the United Nations Security Council. They warned North Korea that a nuclear test would be met with a strong and resolute response from the international community. In 2017, after Pyongyang's last nuclear test, China and Russia supported stricter sanctions. But in May 2022, both countries rejected a US-led proposal to impose more sanctions on North Korea. This is not surprising. We have observed that the CCP is the real crux of the North Korean nuclear issue. The Biden administration is still seeking cooperation with the CCP. With the exception of former President Trump, many past US administrations have resorted to the same approach. In reality, the main reason why the North Korean nuclear issue has been so difficult to resolve over the years is precisely because of the double game the CCP plays between the Kim regime and the US. When examining CCP-related international issues, we have to look beyond Western values and ways of thinking. As a matter of fact, it's easier to understand the CCP's major decisions when viewing from the CCP's perspective. On the issue of North Korea, objectively speaking, as Secretary of State Blinken said in 2021, high-level talks between the US and China, there was a convergence of interests between the two countries. Because North Korea's nuclear development also poses a real threat to China, the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula is a major goal of the CCP's policy towards North Korea on paper. This has confused many Western politicians. Since China and the US share common interests, wouldn't it be better for both sides to work together? But this is a trap set by the CCP. In order to create a constant and dangerous enemy for the US, the CCP risks its own interests by assisting the North Korean regime and helping it develop nuclear weapons. This is not just speculation. In September 2017, the New York Times reported that US intelligence agencies had discovered that North Korean rocket fuel came from China and Russia. North Korea's development of long-range missiles that could strike Guam or the US mainland requires the rare and powerful rocket fuel known as unsymmetrical dimethylhydrazine. US intelligence agencies say that the CCP and Russia are the two major providers of this fuel to North Korea in the early days. Intelligence agencies under the administrations of the last 2 US presidents, Bush and Obama, predicted in classified memos that North Korea would work to develop a highly efficient fuel to develop missiles that could strike the US homeland. Despite the intelligence agencies' warnings, both administrations failed to act at the time. The intelligence report said that North Korea's reliance on unsymmetrical dimethylhydrazine fuel has grown since it demonstrated the medium-range missile at a military parade in late 2010. According to U.S. federal officials, congressional aides, and rocket scientists, new leads indicate North Korea has received the fuel, precursors, secret formulas, and manufacturing equipment from Beijing for years. Beijing has always denied giving North Korea assistance in developing missiles. It claims to have put unsymmetrical dimethylhydrazine on its export control list 16 years ago. However, a 2008 report by U.S. intelligence agencies said that Beijing had been erratic in its enforcement of missile-related export controls. 2 months after the American intelligence report was released on November 28, 2017, North Korea announced the successful launch of a Hwasong-15 ballistic missile. This was the first operational intercontinental ballistic missile developed by North Korea, capable of covering the U.S. mainland while carrying the weight of a nuclear warhead, which could theoretically include Washington, D.C. The launch of the Hwasong-17 missile was widely reported by the official media of North Korea, which appeared to show confidence in success. 15 days ago, on November 3, 2022, North Korea launched a Hwasong-17 intercontinental missile, but it crashed into the East China Sea and failed, and the North Korean media remained silent on the matter. Since North Korea already has the Hwasong-15 ballistic missile with a range up to the U.S. mainland, why do they still have to develop the Hwasong-17? It's likely that North Korea believes that in order to deter the U.S. militarily, it must have the ability to attack the entire U.S. territory with a nuclear warhead of a certain power. A Hwasong-15 with a range of over 10,000 kilometers would only partially satisfy its political and military needs. The Hwasong-17, which has a range of more than 15,000 kilometers, has 4 rocket engine nozzles. Its overall length is 24 meters, longer than the 22 meters of the Hwasong-15. It's also a ballistic missile with a weight of about 100 tons that even the US has never developed. Although North Korea took a slightly exaggerated manner to claim the success of the test launch, it can be seen that it's intended to show the US that the Hwasong-17 is not far from operational deployment. For the CCP, it's a natural policy to support North Korea's nuclear and missile development and to cooperate with the Kim regime in order to keep the US in check. If we look at the history of the CCP's own development of nuclear weapons, it will shed light on its logic and values. The CCP doesn't have the interests of China or the Chinese people at heart, but rather its own separate interests. Its self-interest is to maintain its dominance and to promote its ideology to the world, so that it can control the lives and future of more people on the planet. One of the major reasons why the Chinese Communist regime dares to challenge and even threaten the US today is its possession of nuclear weapons. China had its first atomic bomb on October 16, 1964, its first ground-to-ground missile with a nuclear warhead on October 27, 1966, its first hydrogen bomb on June 17, 1967, and launched its first artificial satellite on April 24, 1970. During those years, tens of millions of Chinese were starved to death in China. Mao Zedong, the first leader of the CCP, expressed his views on nuclear war at an international meeting in 1957, saying, "What is the big deal about nuclear war? There are 2.7 billion people in the world. If half were dead, there would still be half left. China has 600 million people. With half dead, there would still be 300 million left. Who do I fear? Imperialism will be totally destroyed and socialism will still exist." According to a Stockholm International Peace Research Institute report released in June 2019, China ranked 4th in the world with about 290 nuclear bombs. The U.S. Department of Defense Pentagon noted in its annual China Military Power Report to Congress in 2020 that there are indications that China plans to double its nuclear arsenal stockpile in the next decade, including ballistic missiles that could attack the U.S. mainland. Bloomberg reported on November 18, 2022, that U.S. Pacific Fleet Commander Sam Papero told a conference in Washington, D.C. that 6 of China's Type 094 strategic nuclear submarines, NATO codenamed Jin-class, are now equipped with the JL-3 submarine-launched ballistic missile, enabling them to strike the U.S. mainland from closer to its shores. Papero said, "They are built to threaten the U.S., and we are tracking these submarines closely." China's CCTV 2022 published an interview with a member of the Chinese Academy of Engineering on August 16, 2022. He stated that China's level of protective engineering is already able to withstand any strike, including nuclear weapons. "We have protected our strategic killer weapons. Only then can we carry out a counterattack in the second round. We can protect ourselves against any enemy strike, including nuclear strikes. We are able to defend ourselves, and there is more than one set of means of protection." To this day, the thinking of many Chinese people has been twisted by the CCP propaganda. For example, on May 27, 2021, Hu Xijin, the then editor-in-chief of the Global Times, an official CCP media outlet, posted on his social media Weibo account that the CCP must prepare for a high-intensity showdown between China and the US and increase the number of long-range missiles and nuclear warheads to make the US tremble in fear. These so-called Chinese elites living in the party culture don't seem to understand that the nuclear shields that the Chinese Communist authorities have invested heavily in are mainly for the protection of the top of the hierarchy, including the party, government, military, and top power elites in various localities. The civilian population is not in their consideration. Once war breaks out, there will be no room in those nuclear bunkers for common folk. It can be said that what is more dangerous than nuclear expansion is the Chinese Communist authorities' view of nuclear war. China and North Korea have been so-called allies since the Korean War in the 1950s. In addition to the ideological interdependence of the two countries, as North Korea has become increasingly isolated from the rest of the world, the CCP has become its largest trading partner. North Korea's economy is almost entirely dependent on the CCP, and although it sometimes has minor conflicts with the CCP, it does not dare to fall out with the CCP. Since January 2022, North Korea has conducted 8 missile test launches. North Korea's string of military provocations coincides with the growing rivalry between the US and China. We can see that the CCP is using North Korea's military provocations to further divide the US defense alliance in East Asia. When the North Korean missile threat intensifies, Japan and South Korea may avoid alienating Beijing in the hope that the CCP will contain Pyongyang. At the same time, this means that Japan and South Korea may shift their focus to Pyongyang and reduce their support for other US operations in Asia. South Korea is a weak link in the US East Asia alliance. The CCP has also tried to rope in South Korea to split the relationship between Washington and Seoul. In particular, now that China's high-end chip industry is on the verge of collapse, Beijing is even more eager to continue to draw South Korea in with economic benefits. As North Korea continues to build up its missile capabilities, it may make Seoul less inclined to deploy its military outside North Korea. And with Pyongyang posing a much more immediate threat to Japanese lives and territory than Beijing, it will be difficult for Japanese leaders to focus on the CCP if North Korea becomes more belligerent. We naturally lodged a strong protest against North Korea, which has repeated its provocations with unprecedented frequency. I would like to reiterate that we absolutely cannot tolerate this. In addition, in recent years, the CCP has shown increasingly obvious intent to try to seize control of Taiwan. It's likely that Kim Jong-un's actions are also a warning to Japan, South Korea, and the US military in Japan and South Korea not to act rashly to support Taiwan, or else North Korean troops could cross the 38th parallel and shell Japan. This could force Japan and South Korea into a war and make the US military stationed in Japan and South Korea suffer from a backlash. To solve the nuclear problem in North Korea, Washington must keep an eye on North Korea, but it must also keep an eye on the CCP. To defeat the CCP's North Korea card, there is much to learn from former US President Donald Trump's policy toward North Korea. The Trump administration tied the Communist Party and North Korea together, putting extreme pressure not only on Kim Jong-un but also on Beijing whenever Kim Jong-un caused trouble. Diplomacy between Kim Jong-un and Trump has raised fears in Beijing that North Korea might break free from its control. Therefore, dealing directly with Kim Jong-un and not allowing the CCP to act as a middleman might squeeze the CCP out of the game. Finally, let's look at why Kim Jong-un let his daughter come to light this time. As its official media, KCNA describes it, Kim Jong-un inspected an intercontinental ballistic missile test with his beloved wife and daughter. Kim Jong-un is the third generation of the Kim regime in North Korea and married his wife in 2009. Previously, the North Korean official media never mentioned his children, and the North Korean regime never officially confirmed their existence. According to South Korean intelligence agencies, Kim Jong-un's wife gave birth to their first child the year after their marriage, and their second and third children were born in 2013 and 2017, respectively. Many analysts believe that the daughter who appears in the North Korean Central News Agency photo is suspected to be a second child who has the status of a princess in North Korea. Now that the daughter's identity has been revealed, it's possible that she will be able to participate in state affairs in the future, and her presence with her father may even mean that she is the designated heir. The analyst added that if the daughter continues to accompany her father to important events, it would indicate that this is the case. Other observers believe that the photos may also be part of a carefully orchestrated effort by the Pyongyang authorities to show that Kim Jong-un is a normal leader, i.e. that they are trying to position themselves as a normal country by presenting a fatherly image of Kim Jong-un, while at the same time conducting such ICBM test launches to show off their military might. It is also an announcement to the outside world that North Korea is entering its fourth generation of succession and is ready to stabilize its regime. Kim Jong-un's wife also made a rare appearance at the launch. According to an expert on North Korean leadership issues at CNA, a US-based nonprofit research organization, whenever she appears, it is a matter of strategic move. Usually, it's to de-escalate tensions, counter other aggressive messages such as testing missiles, or to show the Kim family's cohesiveness when internal problems arise.
발사 준비 끝. 조선민주주의인민공화국 전략무력의 절대적 힘을 또다시 과시하게 될 역사의 시각은 도래했습니다.